Ever notice how the world praises ambition until it becomes threatening? The moment you rise too far, take charge too quickly, or refuse to bow, suddenly, you're arrogant, too much, power-hungry. But what if that criticism is a trap? What if apologizing for your power isn't virtue, but surrender? Before you dim your light again to make others comfortable, hear this: history favors the unapologetic. In this video, we're diving deep: Machiavelli, Nietzsche, Lao Tzu, and even rare Islamic, African, and Eastern power philosophies, to tell you why never apologizing for taking power is not just wise, it's survival. We'll break down a wild real-life power grab, and how owning it without shame flipped history. If you like unapologetic truth, subscribe right now. This one's not for the faint-hearted. Niccolò Machiavelli, often misunderstood as a cynic but better seen as a brutally honest realist, didn't pen The Prince as a dark satire or a book of villainy. He wrote it as a clear-eyed manual for those navigating the blood-slick arena of power, where morality is weaponized and weakness is punished. To Machiavelli, virtue wasn't defined by kindness, it was defined by effectiveness. Rulers who hesitated, who let guilt cloud decision-making, were devoured by faster, more ruthless players. In his world, power was a living thing, fickle, fleeting, and never won by accident. You didn't ask for it, you seized it, and once you had it, you didn't apologize. Apology was seen not as civility, but as a crack in the armor, a concession that invited resistance. Machiavelli's insight wasn't just about governance, it was about human nature. People, he argued, are drawn to strength, even if they resent it. They will follow the one who acts like they belong on the throne, not the one who keeps asking for permission to sit there. Friedrich Nietzsche would take that concept and stretch it into something even more radical. He argued that behind the veil of morality often lies resentment, a calculated cultural framework designed to shame those with will, vision, and power into submission. For Nietzsche, this was the essence of what he called slave morality, a belief system crafted by the weak to tame the strong, to demonize ambition so that mediocrity could feel righteous. And this morality, he said, wasn't noble, it was a kind of slow spiritual suicide. Every time you say sorry for winning, for leading, for being seen, you are slowly cutting off the very force that gives life its edge, the will to power. Nietzsche didn't mean political domination alone, he meant the primal, creative drive to assert yourself fully into the world. To bow before others' insecurities is, in his view, a betrayal of your own potential. Power should not only be taken, it should be celebrated as a natural, vital force, the same way we honor the strength of a storm or the dominance of a lion. Shame has no place in greatness. Even in the serene philosophy of Taoism, where yielding often triumphs over force, power is not something to be renounced, but harmonized with. Lao Tzu's wisdom in the Tao Te Ching teaches that true leadership flows, like water, adaptable, humble, but entirely unstoppable. Water doesn't boast, yet it wears down mountains. It moves around resistance without losing its path. When Lao Tzu wrote, "To lead the people, walk behind them," he wasn't promoting passivity, he was advocating for leadership without ego. But make no mistake, leadership was still the goal. Taoism values balance and harmony, but not weakness. Doubt, especially self-doubt, creates turbulence in that flow. The Tao does not apologize. It moves with or without your approval. In this worldview, power is most effective when it doesn't need to announce itself, but it never hides in shame either. It does not ask to be accepted, it simply becomes inevitable. And like the river carving through stone, it is respected not for how loudly it demands attention, but for the undeniable imprint it leaves behind. Outside Western paradigms, power is equally revered, though often viewed through the lens of ancestral legacy and spiritual mandate. In the Sahel region of Africa, griot traditions have preserved epic histories of kings, warriors, and chiefs who commanded not through democratic consensus, but through sheer presence and result. These leaders weren't loved in the soft, sentimental way we sometimes define today's figures, they were feared, respected, and remembered. Their legacies were measured by what they built, conquered, or protected, not how polite they were. Similarly, in Islamic tradition, the consolidation of power was not seen as inherently corrupt. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, led with justice and mercy, but his rise to leadership was marked by tactical genius, decisive battles, and an unwavering belief in divine purpose. He never apologized for the authority he wielded, because he knew it served something higher than personal ambition. Apology in that context would have been a betrayal not of humility, but of responsibility. In these traditions, power was sacred because it was purposeful, and backing down from it meant failing the people it was meant to serve. Now let's jump to October 1799, post-revolutionary France, fractured and bloodied by years of instability. The people were exhausted, the political system was a joke, and factions were eating each other alive. It was a perfect storm, and into it stepped a 30-year-old general named Napoleon Bonaparte. With the confidence of a man who had already stared down death on the battlefield, Napoleon executed a swift, calculated coup, declaring himself first consul. It wasn't a timid entrance. It was a power grab so clean and bold, historians still study it today. The political class trembled, intellectuals gasped, and critics screamed tyranny, but Napoleon didn't blink. He rebranded the takeover as salvation, not sabotage. And the people, weary of chaos, accepted it. He didn't just take control, he framed himself as the only one capable of restoring France's dignity. No apologies. No second guessing. Just sheer momentum. And when he crowned himself emperor, literally taking the crown from the Pope's hands and placing it on his own head, he wasn't just rejecting tradition. He was making a cosmic statement: I answer to no one. That one gesture rewrote centuries of symbolic power. In a single act, Napoleon dismantled the illusion of divine hierarchy and replaced it with human will. It was audacious, even blasphemous to some, but it worked. It sent a message that echoed far beyond France: authority belongs to those bold enough to claim it. If he had waited for validation, for political consensus, for permission from the church or aristocracy, history would have passed him by. But because he acted, because he didn't shrink, because he didn't ask for approval, he became unforgettable. Whether you admire him or abhor him, you cannot deny the impact of that unapologetic ascent. It's easy to imagine Machiavelli smiling in the afterlife, watching Napoleon play out the prince in real time, seize control, define the narrative, eliminate ambiguity. Power, held with hesitation, invites rebellion. Power, wielded with clarity, invites stability. Nietzsche, too, would have seen in Napoleon the embodiment of the Dionysian ideal: raw, untamed life force erupting into structure. He wasn't moral in the conventional sense, but he was authentic to his drive. Napoleon didn't pretend to be a man of the people, he was a man of destiny. And that authenticity, that refusal to disguise ambition as service, made his power feel almost mythic. He created a gravitational field around himself that drew soldiers, citizens, even enemies into his orbit. He understood that people are more inspired by vision than by virtue. And here's where it gets wild: Napoleon's refusal to apologize didn't just shape France, it rewired how power was perceived across the world. Revolutionaries in Latin America, nation builders in Asia, even titans of business in the 20th century took cues from his model. The idea that confidence, not lineage, not wealth, not approval, could legitimize authority became a cultural contagion. In a sense, he democratized domination. He showed that if you move with certainty, if you claim space unapologetically, the world has no choice but to react. That's the gravitational nature of unrepentant power: it pulls others into formation. You become the axis. Not because you asked nicely, but because you stood like you were meant to be there. Here's the trap: the moment you apologize for having power, you create a paradox. You're claiming the mantle of leadership while simultaneously expressing doubt about your right to wear it. That contradiction erodes credibility faster than any external attack. People may tolerate arrogance, but they despise weakness masquerading as virtue. When a leader seeks permission for what they've already taken, they undo their own authority. It's like walking into a room and saying, "I'm in charge," but only if everyone's okay with it. That's not leadership. That's a pole. And power doesn't operate on poles, it operates on presence. Apology in this context doesn't just weaken perception, it fractures reality. People begin to see your success not as deserved, but as a mistake waiting to be corrected. From a psychological and evolutionary standpoint, this dynamic is ancient. In dominance hierarchies, from packs of wolves to corporate boardrooms, displays of regret signal vulnerability. It's blood in the water. Predators, whether literal or metaphorical, hone in on those cues. Apology, in competitive environments, is often read not as humility but as an opening. A silent permission to challenge. That's why powerful individuals who frequently express regret often find themselves undermined, not because they're less competent, but because they've broadcasted uncertainty. And in hierarchies, uncertainty is weakness. It tells the group that maybe someone else should lead. Not because you're wrong, but because you don't seem sure you're right. Max Weber called it charismatic authority, the ability to command through sheer presence, vision, and certainty. It's not about your resume. It's not even about results at first. It's about whether people believe in you as the embodiment of a larger force. That charisma is fragile. The moment it's clouded by over-explanation or regret, the magic dissipates. You become just another figure in the crowd, just another bureaucrat. People don't follow power because it's justified, they follow it because it feels inevitable. Apology breaks that spell. It turns destiny into debate. And once you're being debated, you're already on your way down. Look at modern icons, Margaret Thatcher, who famously said, "The lady's not for turning," Lee Kuan Yew, who transformed Singapore with an iron vision, Elon Musk, who charges ahead with unapologetic confidence no matter the backlash. These figures are polarizing for a reason, they don't bow. They don't dilute their actions with constant remorse. And whether history ultimately views them as heroes or tyrants is irrelevant to their influence. Their refusal to apologize became their signal, a flare that said, "I am here. I will not shrink." And in a world constantly asking people to be smaller, quieter, nicer, that signal is power. To be clear, this isn't a license to be cruel or despotic. There's a difference between unapologetic leadership and blind tyranny. But if your rise is earned, if you've worked, fought, and sacrificed for what you've built, then false modesty does you no favors. Own your space. Name your role. Don't dress authority up in apologetic language just to soothe those who feel threatened by it. Be direct. If your power serves a purpose, whether that's innovation, protection, or transformation, then make that purpose known. Not with arrogance, but with clarity. And understand, false humility is its own kind of lie. It says, "I don't know if I deserve this." If you do, then say so. And lead like it. Because the real corruption doesn't start with ambition, it starts with dishonesty. When people pretend they don't want power, but act in secrecy to get it, that's when systems fall apart. When leaders hide their ambition under the guise of service, they create mistrust. History's strongest figures, Alexander, Cleopatra, Mandela, Genghis Khan, Elizabeth I, didn't whisper their intentions. They announced them. They understood that ambition, when paired with action, builds legacies. What people hate isn't power, it's hypocrisy. So stop pretending power is a shameful thing. Stop disowning your drive. The world doesn't need more quiet leaders, it needs clear ones. If you've claimed space in this world, if you've done the work, survived the fire, or outmaneuvered the noise, stand up. Stand all the way up. Don't dim yourself to make the room comfortable. Don't downplay what you've earned. That's not virtue, that's surrender. The history books aren't filled with those who waited their turn. They're filled with those who wrote their own chapters. So when power finds you, or you find it, don't look back. Don't ask for permission. And definitely don't apologize. You weren't meant to bow. You were meant to build. So the next time someone says, "Who do you think you are?" answer with action, not apology. Channel Machiavelli. Embrace Nietzsche. Flow like Lao Tzu. Lead like Napoleon. Not with cruelty, but with clarity. Not for vanity, but for vision. Power belongs to those who take it and keep it. And the only way to keep it is never to apologize for having it. Own your space. Walk through the door. Close it behind you if you must. Just don't say sorry. Like this kind of thinking? Good. That means you're dangerous in the best way. This is the Beyond the Surface channel. Hit that subscribe button, share this with someone who's on the edge of greatness, and remember, the throne doesn't come with an apology note. It comes with a crown. Thank you for watching.